Hey, New Life Youth, welcome to our YouTube page. Great to have you on board with us. Today we have something extra special. We have a two-part interview with our good friend Colin Missingham. Welcome to part A. We'll be uploading part B next week sometime. But enjoy and get involved, take some notes, and we're going to do a live group around this on Zoom as well. So awesome to be here, guys. We have an extra special guest here with us today, my good personal friend, Colin Missingham. How you going, Cole?
Wonderful. Wonderful. How's it going? New Life Youth all the way in Harvey Bay from Roma, Queensland. Sunny Roma. We've got, which looks like it's about to rain outside, but this is the
All
thing
I
with
can see is a wall.
yeah, that's right. Partially painted. As don't judge me.
So we might start, Cole. First of all, who are you and where are you from?
Yeah, okay, cool. So I'm Cole, and I currently live in Roma with my beautiful family, but I come from a little bit all over the place. So when I grew up, I traveled, my parents moved around a fair bit in Queensland, really, and Northern Territory. So where I'm from is everywhere, and where I currently live is beautiful, sunny Roma, where my wife and I have been looking after the youth for a number of years now. So, I work full time for a company called Santos as a material controller, which is a fancy way of saying I work in a warehouse and I unload trucks. And so that's where I'm at. That's what I do, and that's the short version, I suppose.
Awesome, man. You may actually also recognize Colin from Downpour Camp if you've been before as well. He is the one of the half of the evil geniuses that make all the epic games and the Hour of Madness at Downpour Camp. So if you haven't been before, it's going to be on again this year, later in the year, but it's going to be epic, and you might even get to see this guy in the person and possibly be traumatized by some of his games. But so, Cole, what do you love doing the Hour of Madness and games like that at Downpour? Like, what's your passion behind that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So I'll back it up a little bit to give you a bit of a story on it. But I didn't always run games at youth. In fact, we work in youth ministry, but I grew up on farms and stations, and I never went to a youth group in my entire youth life. And then I started coming to church in Roma, and the pastor said he needed a hand running some, helping him run a youth camp. And then where I went along and I just helped him the first year, and the next year I helped him a little bit more, and then progressively over the years I started taking on more roles of the running the games and the Hour of Madness at youth camp, and I found that in all of that, I actually have a gift and a passion for causing suffering to young people. And so I've done that in many ways over the years. I've forced them to eat bananas that have been on their feet. I've forced them to, eat molasses, which is disgusting, and I've covered them in flour and food coloring. And so I've done my best every year to try and dye someone's skin a certain color, but I've failed thus far. Wait for this year; it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I just discovered that some people have a gift, they can paint a portrait, and some people have a gift that they can write music, or like you, Josh, you can ride a bike like a crazy man. And but I have the gift where I think of something and I go, that's a good way to torture somebody, so I do it. And yeah, and you can really feel sorry. Not You can feel sorry for the young people that come to the camp, but you can also feel sorry. I have 4 kids, so they get this all the time, and yeah, that's what I love about it.
That's awesome. We like to make fun of it and talk about this in like that it's crazy, but people actually love the games that you guys come up with, and your youth really loves you and values you guys, and it's really cool that Cole, you just started serving. You didn't necessarily feel like a giant light come down from the sky and say you must put young people through molasses. But what I hear there is that there was a need in that, your pastor, Pastor Shane, needed help. And you just decided, well, I'm going to help him. So for you, Cole, was there a moment, as you started helping and serving where, it challenged you or you thought maybe I shouldn't be doing this?
To be perfectly honest, there never was a moment where I thought I'm not the guy for this position. or I'm not the guy who should be forcing these young people to do terrible things. But what actually hit me one time was the realization that it's games and activities and messy games especially. There's a lot of work goes into them. There's a lot of energy goes into them. There's a lot more behind the scenes than you could even imagine. And what I discovered was that the difference is that people came to the youth camp, right? Young people come to this youth camp every year, and their lives are changed, and their hearts are changed, and God does amazing things in these young people every single year. And I cover them in molasses. Where does that even line up? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why the games? Look, God's going to make a difference no matter what. But then I realized that in 9 months' time after that youth camp, when the next youth camp is coming up and those young people are talking a bit to their friends because they loved youth camp last year and they want to come back to youth camp next year, but they want to bring their best friend. They never tell their best friend about the amazing things God did or the amazing miracles they saw. They tell their friend about getting covered in molasses and throwing flower bombs at each other. And that's what brings the next group of people coming along to this youth camp. And I was playing a very small part in a very big picture of what God wants to do in the lives of young people. And that's the point where I realized this is worth it. So
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I really love that. No matter what you're doing to serve God, if you're doing it for God and you're doing it for people to encounter Jesus, it's never wasted.
yeah,
And for you, even though it seems like you had that moment where you're like, how does this even fit? Why does it even matter? It's a part of the bigger picture. At your youth group, you might be able to, like at our youth group, you might be able to stack chairs at the end of the night back, but you're a part of the bigger picture. You're a part of what God's doing in that youth. No matter how small or insignificant you think what you're able to serve in or do is for a start, you're honoring God. So it's a form of worship. You're actually worshiping God by your actions, by what you're doing. And you're doing something to be a part of it. And that's pretty cool. And I love your faithful heart, Cole, that year after year, and guys, there is a substantial amount of work and thinking and time that goes into these things, more than what Colin would ever say. And these guys serve faithfully year after year after year, and they honor God, and they do it because they love young people and they want to see God impact young lives. And that's powerful. So for you, Cole, just so we have a bit of a background on you and your upbringing, um, were you always a Christian? Like, did you just be born as this youth pastor extraordinaire, or like, what's a bit of your story for us, Cole?
yeah, okay, cool. Backdating the storyline. So I grew up in what you might call a CNE Christian household. Christmas and Easter, you might go to church. Like I said, I grew up on a lot of stations and properties, and my parents were dairy farmers for a lot of years. And when you're a dairy farmer, you're milking cows morning and night. There's no church space in between that. No one has church at lunchtime. And so I didn't really go to church. I remember vivid images of my dad pulling out a Bible one night and reading us a story from the Bible around the dinner table. And I think that only happened once. To this day, I've never heard my parents pray. To this day, I don't. That's not how they live, essentially. And I went through life kind of going with the same approach. Even though I was close to churches, by the time I was in high school, I never went to churches. I went to a Christian school. I actually went to Riverside Christian College over in Maryborough, close to where you guys are. And so I went there, and I learned about Jesus, and I knew about Jesus. But I took the same approach as my parents did, in that Jesus is part of my life, and I believe in Jesus, but not to the point where he changes my every day. That's a special occasion we say grace sort of a Jesus, not the Jesus who's there every day and loves me and cares for how I live my life. And so that was the approach I took. And then I finished school and I got a job and I started working away from home. I actually started working in Roma, and I was a drive-in, drive-out for the company I work for now. And I did what every young person does who finishes school and doesn't really have a big picture for their life. I finished work every day and I went to the pub with my workmates, and we had a few beers and a few beers and a few beers. And I did that day after day. And then one night I had one too many beers, and I woke up in a pretty bad place and realized, probably one of the darkest, if not the darkest days of my life. I realized how far I had fallen in a way, like where I thought my life would be and where I realized I was actually heading towards. It struck me that I hadn't had it figured out. You know, I'd been just coasting, and and in that darkest day, in that moment, I realized the one thing I needed was the thing that I'd been hearing about at school, and you know, this guy called Jesus. You know, like there's got to be a better way. And so that was the day I decided to commit my life, my whole life to Jesus. And yeah, it's kind of been a journey since then, I would say.
Yeah.
It's always been a journey, but journey with Jesus since then.
Wow. So for you, Cole, it was almost like you were just sort of getting by, and Jesus was this acquaintance almost that you kept at a nice social distance, 2.5 meters indoors. But it's almost like you had this arm length relationship with Jesus, and it took hitting rock bottom to actually go, you know what, I need Jesus. So was there one defining moment for you, you know, in that where you really welcomed Jesus into your world or your life, or was it that moment where you hit the rock bottom and your faith became personal instead of like something that was at a distance?
Yeah, I would say that it wasn't. There was no defining moment where, you know, where the light shone around me, and you know, and all of a sudden there was he, and you know, like that Paul encounter on the road to Damascus, where you know everyone was blinded and he heard Jesus speak. I never got that moment, but there was actually, when I look back on my life, all I see is Jesus' hands bringing me to where I am right now. You know, I remember a Catholic school that I was in for about 9 months in grade 5, where we went to this chapel every Wednesday and we sang these songs about this guy called Jesus on the old overhead projectors against the wall. Like I'm not that old, but I remember that. Okay, I'm a little bit old, but I'm younger than you, so don't judge me. And anyway, but I remember singing these songs, and I liked singing the songs, but I could never put my finger on why I liked it. And looking back now, it's because Jesus was in the songs that I was singing in that chapel, and something in my heart was drawn to this guy called Jesus, even though I didn't know who that was. And so for me, when I hit the rock bottom, I didn't have this epiphany moment. I just thought there's got to be a better way. And Jesus was the only answer that I had that jumped into my heart. And so it was this journey, you know, it wasn't like, now I'm a Christian, now I've figured it all out, but it was the first step towards a slow journey about, you know, to where I am today, where my life is going good, and I can see God moving through and around it and about it. And it's amazing. So yeah, I would say it's the start of a journey, but no fantastic moment, just a lot of really cool moments in between. So.
Yeah. Wow, some awesome stuff there from Colin. I'll look forward to joining you guys for part 2 of the interview with Colin. Even more amazing stuff. Trust me when I say this guy is a legend, and he's had an amazing life, and it has some really practical tips in the next part of this interview. So we're going to share that next week, and we're going to have some more life group around that. But right now we're going to go to our Zoom life group, and we're going to engage and talk about what Colin spoke about today.